Hunters and jumping. Synonymous, really. So what if we took the jumpy nature of the hunters and created a build specifically around it, while causing mayhem and becoming indestructible? I don't have a name for this one, but maybe I should. Let's see. The cut and cover hover. No. The azote float cutthroat. No, that's not it. The Ace C130. Yeah. Good enough. Hunters, Ace of Spades. Yeah, not bad. Oh, sorry. Cue the montage. My goal with this build was to use Ascension with the exotic armor Gifted Conviction, which gives your Ascension some extra bombs that drop and more importantly allows you to gain damage resist when you jolt an enemy. Now Ascension is pretty fun to use, but of course it lifts you up into the air, so my thinking is why not double down on the aerial gameplay by using the Manticore as well. Stop, I know what you're thinking, the Manticore, really? But hear me out. Things get jolted and you get damage resist when you use Ascension, and the Manticore also gives damage resist and reduces enemy accuracy while you're floating with it. Ascension lifts you, Manticore holds you in the air. Armor, safety, extra damage, fun times. Now originally I was using Arc with all of this, but it just felt like it was missing something. It's totally usable on Arc, and the extra reload speed is nice with the Manticore since it reloads so slow. But with Prismatic in the game and this setup already mixing Arc and Void, you might as well go the extra mile and do some fancy things while we're at it. Alright, so we're on Prismatic, and the super doesn't matter, just take whatever you want. We're shooting for a mix of Void, Arc, and Strand here. Threaded Spike melee and Grapple for your grenade, Stylish and Ascension for the aspects, and Fragments are where things get spicy. Ascension makes you amplified, so Hope is a no-brainer here, and then Bravery. Yes, Bravery. Let's make a quick pit stop here and talk about Bravery. So this fragment gives you unraveling rounds when you score a powered melee takedown, and it also gives you volatile rounds when you get a grenade takedown. Grapple, coincidentally, counts for both. Because grapple is technically grenade, but you also technically melee out of it, so getting a grapple melee takedown awards both unraveling rounds and volatile rounds. And grapple is just a really good tool to have while you're in the air. Win-win. Win. 3 wins, I think. Back to the other fragments, Awakening gives resilience, which is nice, and makes pickups, which is also very nice. Of course, protection for more resistance. And finally, Solitude. This one is much more handy than it sounds. Of course, it'll make enemies deal less damage, ultimately making you even tankier, but because it severs, it also makes a tangle, which you can use to grapple to as well. In terms of mods, there's really not a ton that helps out all that much. A lot of the class ability related mods don't work with Ascension, it's just weird like that. Truthfully, the mods don't matter all that much anyway, this build is pretty airtight as is. I went with standard stuff, loader, siphon, ammo finder, surges. You could go just special finisher, since we have a special weapon paired with the Manticore. Again, none of this really matters all that much, the most important mod is probably just Void Loader, since the Manticore reloads so slow. For weapons, I obviously went with the Manticore, but paired with that I needed a strand weapon, since I'm using unraveling rounds. And what better option than the Call? The fan favorite archetype of rocket sidearms never fails to deliver, and the Call is no exception. Perks don't really matter on this thing, I just happen to have Strategist and One for All, but you do you. For your heavy, it's just a matter of what you prefer. I like this Pro Memoria, it gives another strand weapon, and it's also got Dealer's Choice, just like the Call does, and having multiple, of course, boosts its effectiveness quite a bit. Free super energy, I can't complain. So now that all of that is out of the way, how does this build actually play? Surprisingly well, actually. This is one of those builds I thought would sound better on paper, but in practice wouldn't perform. I was pleasantly surprised then to find that this build functions very well. Combining the damage resist from Gifted Conviction and the Manticore led to some really extraordinary results. And I even forgot to mention that sustained damage from the Manticore while airborne also gives you a Void Overshield. There are times where every part of this build fires off and you become nearly immortal. You've got to stay committed though. In tougher activities you need every part functioning, and that Void Overshield from the Manticore is a big part of it. Now, I will say you can pull this off a little bit easier with Stompies, as it gives PvE damage resist while you're airborne, which of course works perfectly with the Manticore, but personally I find the extra bombs from Gifted Conviction just a bit more fun and interesting. It's a brutal mix of abilities and effects. Tangles are everywhere, letting you grapple all over the place, scoring unraveling rounds and volatile rounds constantly. Having both a void and strand weapon on top of those effects ensures that you've always got transcendence energy as well. This is actually a build I've used in Grandmasters before, and while it is somewhat risky, the damage resist and shielding is enough to keep you in the fight, even against those lethal enemies. Outside of Grandmasters though, this build still rocks, and you'll find that Ascension gets a lot of kills on its own in addition to all of its other effects. Seriously, you all have got to try this. It is a ruthless mix of abilities and effects, and while it can be a somewhat complicated build to play, trying to keep all the effects going, it is nonetheless an extremely powerful setup that will not fail you so long as you keep up with it. Not everyone will like this build. I know some people that just really don't like the Manticore and hanging in the air, but if you give it some time and really get a feel for it, you can output a lot of damage for just existing, and the resist will keep you in the fight much longer than you might think. This has quickly become one of my favorite builds in Destiny. I'm not always a huge fan of the Hunter like I once was, but this build has such a unique playstyle and I love it. Combined with Prismatic's freedom and mixing of elements, you'll be able to decimate the battlefield while having a great view of all the carnage from above. Let's talk about this build down in the comments. Try it, tweak it, make it your own. Let me know what changes you'd make to this. Until next time.